declare the November 10th, 2014 regular City Council meeting in session. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First off, I'll note for the audience, there's a new face sitting at the table to my right. That's the new city manager, Lori Huckinen, who started today of all places, of all things. So, Lori, welcome. And Lori's going to be a somewhat quiet participant today, I think. And Ed, the current interim city manager up until today, is going to lead us through this agenda. So, with that, Ed, I noticed there's an amended agenda in front of us.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. There is an amended agenda, and I call your attention to 3 items. We're going to add under the consent of 5C, which is authorize a letter of support to Carver County for the solicitation of federal funds for the paving of the Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail. And then we have under reports of the city manager, it's not shown, but we're going to just have a general discussion about election campaign signs and where they're placed in the city. And with that, that's the extent of the changes.
Okay, does anybody have anything else to add? I'll take a motion to approve the amended agenda.
I move that we approve the amended agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've approved the amended agenda. Next item, excuse me. Next item is on the agenda is the open forum. It's an opportunity for citizens to address the council on topics not on the current agenda. Does anybody wish to take advantage of the open forum? Seeing none, we'll move along. There's no visitor presentation tonight. To the consent agenda, this is where all items are approved with one motion unless somebody wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda. Does anybody wish to remove anything? I would like to remove A, the audio-visual solution for the new City Hall council chambers and meeting room. I do this because I think it's important that the council and the audience get a sense of what's contemplated here. So not that I view it as controversial, but I think it would be helpful to understand. So I'll move that we approve the amended consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We've adopted the amended consent agenda. Item A. Where is she?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Jenny Kretsch is here. She will go through the item. It's on your handout. It was on the agenda, but we had limited information as of the time that the packet went out on Thursday. So in front of you this evening is the memo that talks about the audiovisual system for the new City Hall. And Jenny's here just to kind of highlight some of the things, answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, there's just to repeat, in my mind, there's nothing controversial about this. It's all good news, and I think the council and the audience ought to get a chance to hear some of the good news that's being planned for the new building. So, Jenny?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The goal of the audiovisual for the new City Council chambers is, number one, for everybody to be able to see, to be able to hear, and to be able to record what goes on during the meetings. With that being said, I don't think we have a little pointer, but we have these little bump outs in the council chambers. Those are going to be TV monitors that will display for the audience anything that is being presented. They're going to be 55-inch TVs, so they will be able to, see throughout the whole council chambers there. On the dais, we will have monitors for the council to be able to see also what is being displayed. Staff will have a control mechanism that'll control being able to display things, to be able to remove things. In addition to that, we will also have built into the system some HDMI cables or some plug-ins, so if down the road we want to add laptops or something else to be more interactive, the system is expandable. We'll also have built into that some functions with our iPads so we can continue to use those, and if we wanted to display whatever's on the iPad onto the monitors, we will have that option as well. The monitors will actually be, they will not be right in front of you. They will be a shared one because the dais is not higher. You don't sit up, so your screen would essentially be right in front of you. So they're going to be a little offset. So everybody can be able to, you can be able to see the audience, they can be able to see you, and you'll be able to see the screen as well. As far as the audio portion, of course, we're going to have microphones. They're going to be built in. They will not be taken up and down like we have here. They will be no feedback, no static. The system has two components to it. There will be speakers in the ceiling above the audience. So of course the audience will be able to hear, but then council's also going to have a set of speakers above them so you can hear each other. Because like with our current system, the speakers go out this way and sometimes you can't hear each other talk, you know, if you're sitting back or something. So you're going to be able to hear yourselves and you're going to be able to hear the audience. At the lectern or the presentation table there, that table is going to be movable for other functions in there. So we will have, of course, a microphone built in there. We will have a connection, so if somebody wants to bring a laptop, they could plug that in. Otherwise, you know, what we do now is, you know, if somebody gives us a presentation ahead of time, we have it already available and we'll be able to display that. So that's our options for being heard and seen in the council chambers. Now the recording part of it, in our AV room, we will have our control system for the recording. And we will have 2 cameras in the council chambers. One will be in the back of the room that will get everybody on the council. When they're speaking, we can do a wide angle, or the system will have presets where you just push a button and it will zoom in on the person speaking. And there will also be a camera behind the council table there, so it can get somebody presenting at the podium as well as span the audience. You know, right now we kind of only get a side shot. This will get a full view, so we have a good recording of that. And it'll all be recorded and controlled in the AV room. There will be sound capabilities and systems so that they can turn somebody up or down if, you know, we have somebody presenting, they have a softer voice and you can't hear. So that'll all be controlled from back there. Also with that system, which is a requirement that we put our videos out onto cable television, is going to be a modulator where our recordings are going to be able to be merged over to a format to be uploaded to cable television. When we get that system from Mediacom, we don't have that yet. We're still trying to get all that put together. The third component of all of this is going to be in our conference room. In our conference room, that will also be the chambers where the council can go into for closed sessions. We will have an actual speaker, microphone, recording device separate from our other systems in that conference room. It will be a commercial grade versus a little handheld where you can't pick anything up, and will have it'll be essentially in the middle of the tables, and you'll be able to control it there, hit record, stop, and that capability to extract that and save that. Also in the conference room for presentations or retreats or any sort of meetings with staff and council or any constituents, developers, we're going to have essentially a smart screen. We're not going to go with the smart, we're going to go with a Sharp, which is an equivalent at a lesser price on the wall that's interactive, full capabilities with our network, so we'll be able to put presentations up there, use the screen to write on, to be fully interactive, and will be a really nice meeting space to be utilized. So that being said, it's kind of in the nutshell overview of the entire system. The system is fully expandable. This is kind of a base system, and as we grow and as we want to add functions and capabilities, we can expand the system and grow and add things to it. So We are recommending, we received quotes from 3 vendors, and we're recommending going with Tierney Brothers. They have extensive history and putting council chambers together and other sorts of meeting rooms. This is their forte, and they have provided a very robust system for us for the price, and will meet all of our needs to be able to see the meeting, see the meetings, record, and be able to hear.
Jenny, you want to comment on the 60,000 that were, the majority of the costs are going to be funded?
Sure can. We received from MediaCom, due to our franchise agreement, payment up front in PEG fees that are obtained by MediaCom, paid to us to be used towards the recording, sound, kind of the audio-visual system of the council chambers. So we received a payment up front, $60,000, that needs to be spent on that. The remainder of the cost we have budgeted for as part of the building in the IT portion of it. So the remainder will be paid for that.
Yeah, the 60,000 came because we dropped out of the LMCC, and that, in the past, that money went to LMCC, and now it's to us.
Yes, that is correct.
Questions for?
A couple quick questions. One is just, so in net, this is still within budget? We're not...
This is still within budget. We're actually kind of under budget on the, when you take into consideration the 60,000, we're doing really good on our budget for IT.
Thank you. And then the second question is, we've got a quote here that's about $900 less, and I don't know that I've ever seen us recommend not the lowest bidder. Does this mean that Marco Inc. was non-responsive, or?
All systems met the base requirements. Tierney Brothers' system is, for the price, more robust. They've got more experience in these types of council chambers. Their pricing is off of the state contract as well, and their pricing includes a not to exceed because it's on the state contract. So if once they get in there and they start cabling and getting everything in there, if there's something they're missing, they can't change order it and cost us more, whereas the other options are not on the state contract.
So Marco Inc. would have some risk to their quote?
Yes, essentially.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Bob?
if I may, just because I've been asked this question, whether the city may elect to go with the quote that's not the lowest quote, and I've opined that you may do that, you can do that. And the reason is really twofold, and I think you've covered it, but just to reiterate, you are both below the threshold for public bidding, the $100,000 threshold, but in addition to that, a significant element of what you have in front of you is professional services. This is both to receive equipment, but then also professional services to install it, to train on use of it, and to provide other services beyond simply providing the technology. So for both of those reasons, you were able to obtain quotes, not bids, and so you're not bound to take the lowest bid. And as you see, the staff recommendation recommends the very, very slightly higher Tierney Brothers because they provide some superior services and because they do guarantee their pricing. So that is perfectly legal.
Any other questions, comments? I'll make a motion to approve the proposal from Tierney Brothers in the amount of $83,099.23 for the audiovisual solution for the council chambers, video recording room, and meeting room for the new city hall.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've approved Tierney Brothers. Next, we're back to the amended consent agenda. Would someone make a motion to approve the amended consent agenda?
We approve the amended consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've approved the amended consent agenda. Finance, the claims roster.
I'll move the approval of the November 11th, 2014 claims roster in the amount of $406,697.42.
Second.
Any discussion?
I did have a question, but it's not really about whether we pay these bills or not, but I did notice one of the items that was on here was related to IT services, and it just kind of prompted me that we haven't done an RFQ for IT services, I'm not sure if ever, in the time I've been here, at least not in the last couple of years, and I'm wondering if that's something that we should be contemplating in the near future.
I don't know. Ed, are you aware, have we done this in the past? We haven't done it in your brief
We've done
stay
it for
here.
engineering,
Not in
we've
the
done it
last
for
4
legal.
months.
Right, but we haven't done it for,
Sometimes that happens, but when you establish a relationship with a company for a while and they understand your needs and and you have a relationship with them on the services that they're providing, unless there's some kind of a major glitch.
is Jenny still here? No. Yeah, we're talking about information.
Usually you don't disrupt it unless there's some kind of a problem or problems.
Yeah, what information solutions, what's the name of our?
Solution builders.
Solution builders. Yeah, we ought to at least ask the question. So I guess, Lori, take note, if you would please, we'll talk to Jenny, see when the last time, if ever, we did a thing, and then bring it back to council, and we can decide if it makes sense to, that's a good point, Tom, they should not be excluded, unless it's done consciously.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the claims roster?
Aye.
Opposed? We've approved the claims roster. Employee benefits for 2015.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, city annually works with a consultant to obtain quotations for medical health insurance coverage as well as life insurance and other benefits. And Kelly has a report on that and what the renewal rate looks like for 2015.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Each year, the city offers an open enrollment for our employees where they can enroll in health, dental, the various other insurances the city carries. The city is part of the small group market. Since we're under 50 employees, we're in the small group market. So what that means for us is each year we'll go out and we'll get quotes from the 4 major providers, and we'll look at those, assess the options, and see what's best and what we want to recommend for our employees. For 2014, we've been using Blue Cross Blue Shield. However, their quotes were higher than the ones from Health Partners. So staff is recommending that we switch over to Health Partners. The city's current plan carries an $1,850 single or $3,700 family deductible. The city is currently paying 95% of the single premium and 80% of the family premium. We're not recommending any change in that premium coverage. And then the city also contributes to the health savings accounts for enrolled employees, $375 for singles, $750 for family coverage. The quote from Health Partners actually offers a slightly lower deductible. It would be $1,750 for single, $3,500 for family. It is an HSA plan. If you compare our current employees and dependents covered and look at the premiums between 2014 and 2015, the overall increase is about 1.15%, which is a very good rate, especially given that the deductibles are a bit lower. Overall coverage is very comparable. It is an open access network, meaning employees can go pretty much anywhere for their health care. One of the things we'd also like to do this year is offer a second plan. It would be a higher deductible plan. It would be $3,000 for single, $6,000 for family. And then with that, the city would contribute the same amount it does for the first plan we're offering. The reason we like to offer that is that some of our employees have accumulated a balance in their health savings account. Maybe they don't spend a lot on medical care. This enables them to spend less on their premiums and put more into an HSA. So we're going to run that by employees, see what they think. We think there might be some interest in that. One of the new things we'd like to offer this year is an opt-out payment, and this would be available to those employees that have coverage through either a spouse or if they were enrolled in Medicare. The amount would be $250 a month or $3,000 a year. And based on current current employees that would have coverage available through a spouse and may be interested, staff estimates that our savings would be between $10,500 and $35,000 per year. As it is right now, our family coverage, when you factor in the amount that the city pays for a premium plus the HSA contribution, it's about $11,300. So the difference between $11,300 and $3,000 is quite a bit of savings. For dental, we received quotes that are the same as 2014, so we'd like to continue on with Delta Dental in the same capacity. For that, the city pays the 100% of the single premium, and staff would make up the difference for any family or dependent coverage. The next line of coverage we'd like to talk about and recommend is for life insurance. Staff is recommending that the city increase the amount of life insurance from $25,000 to $50,000. $50,000 is the amount of life insurance the city can provide without having any type of tax consequence to the employee. The annual cost for the year, or the annual cost for this would be $1,387. And then along with that, we would like to offer optional life insurance to employees that would be 100% paid by the employees. We have had some employees ask for that in the past. And then finally, one other thing we'd like to offer to the staff is identity theft insurance. The cost for that is $275 for the year. In looking at how this impacts the budget scenarios here are just concerning employer-paid insurance, and it impacts different funds. For 2014, the total that the city budgeted for various insurance benefits is just over $162,000. Our current budget, and that's with the recommendations outlined in this agenda statement, we are showing about $179,000. Now, that does include family coverage for the 3 employees that we will be hiring soon, the community development director, a replacement public works employee, and then a new public works employee. So if any of those 3 opt for lesser insurance, the amount would go down. Then if you look at the budget option, if we were to have 5 employees that opted out, the amount would drop to $168,000, so that would be a 4% increase over last year's total insurance budget. And if we were to have 8 employees opt out, we'd actually see a decrease in our insurance cost of about 11.5%, down to $143,718.
How many opt-outs do we have today?
We have 3 right now. Well, actually, we have 4 with Lori, so.
So, can you explain the opt-out to me? I guess this just seems like kind of odd. So, they
Yep.
decide not to take the city's insurance, and in return, we pay them a monthly.
Yep,
Kelly, would you like me?
sure.
The opt-out I look at as a contribution to achieving health insurance for every employee. And if it helps offset the cost of what they might pay for their spouse's premium co-pays or their high deductible plan, it eases some of the city's, what we're spending, and it gets the employee better coverage that they're pleased with that offsets their cost. So more than it's a reward for opting out of coverage, it's a contribution to their total benefits package, giving them a little bit more flexibility. Does that make sense?
Is that normal?
I mean, I think what you're suggesting is we're paying somebody to not take our insurance.
Yeah.
On the
Why
face
would
of
we
it,
do
the
that?
surface of it, it sounds a little odd.
Do we require the employee to show proof that they have other coverage?
Absolutely. That would be your requirement.
Is this a package that is comparable in Chanhassen, for instance?
Yes, and I would say about 70% of cities in the metro, maybe 60, I don't want to give an exact number, but it's pretty typical to offer some kind of an opt-out amount, ranging anywhere from $50 a month up to an amount that would be equivalent to what you would pay for a single premium.
I think from my private employer, it is consistent. I think there is an opt-out option. What I think is maybe not consistent is the level of coverage that the city covers, the 95% and the 80%. And maybe this is ignorance on my part, but it almost seems opposite, that the 80% would be more on the single and the 95% on the family, or something. That family coverage obviously is more expensive. So why are those numbers different, and why that orientation?
And I'll refer back to Kelly now because she has the history on that piece.
I think the percentages that the city pays is fairly typical for cities. In general, cities do have a richer health insurance package than the private sector does. And how we got to the 95% for single and 80% for family, that's been the way for about 4 or 5 years. Prior to that, we had a 90-80. Or was it, let me think here. I don't want to misspeak, so I'd have to double check, but I know we changed that about 4 years ago. We had a, I believe we paid 90% of the single coverage and 90% of the family, and we changed it. Just when you look at the total dollar amount involved in a single versus a family premium, there was an attempt to make it a little more even so that the level of benefits we're providing to employees wasn't tilted quite so much to family coverage. Because the amount the city pays for family is, you know, and with the HSA is close to $11,000 a year.
Do you know roughly what the comparable private sector employer participation is?
In terms of what employers pay towards the premiums in the private sector?
Yeah.
That I don't know, and maybe Lori.
Don't think I could accurately comment on it.
This is consistent with what we've done last year, and you said 4 years?
I believe it's been about 4 years since we switched to the 95% single, 80% premium coverage ratio.
And it is a fact that, well, don't make a statement, ask a question. Is it a fact that this is consistent with other municipalities, and that municipalities as a general rule are richer in their offering than private companies?
That's correct. The League of Minnesota Cities does a survey each year, and we have access to those survey results. So I pulled those, the various cities that are within the 5,000 to 15,000 population range, just to see what they offer for insurance, what they do for opt-outs. And of course, everybody's across the board, but when I look at the average amount contributed towards premiums, we're in an average amount.
I think from some of the things I've seen, there are cities that pay all the way up to 100%, and probably as low as 80, maybe 75 might have been the lowest number I've seen. But typically, yes, cities are much richer in their benefit plans than public sector.
I'm impressed with the very minimal 1.15% premium increase. That's certainly less than any numbers I've heard in any private sector. By 5 to 10 is kind of a going minimum almost. So.
And is it the case that with the line, the column that's labeled the 2015, excuse me, budget of 179,000 and change, that's what we're showing today?
That's what's in the budget.
In the budget
right now.
Right now.
And when I've factored in, we've had a few changes since we last discussed the budget. But right now, with this higher amount, assuming no opt-outs, we're looking at a $28 increase in taxes for the median valued homeowner, and that's considering everything. That's all of our debt levies, that's our general fund, that's our rec center. So that includes the debt for the new city hall. So if we do the opt-outs, that number could presumably go down more, or the council may look at, an area of an enhancement that they'd want to use that additional savings for.
Just so I understand, the 179 and change, that's the 2015 budget, that includes the 4 opt-outs today?
That includes 3 opt-outs.
Three
I've got
opt-outs.
one in there that's perennial, sometimes comes back to the city, sometimes goes to the spouse's plan.
So what you're suggesting is there's a 10.5% increase over last year.
That includes additional employees in the mix, so it's higher than the overall premium increase due to
More people.
possibly having to cover that employee and the new employees. If they take family coverage, we need to budget for that in case they do select family
And
coverage.
if it includes 3 opt-outs and the other alternative is 5, we're somewhere between 179 and 168,000?
Yes.
Somewhere between a 10.5% increase and a 4% increase.
Yes. If we have more employees opt out, it would be a decrease in the budget.
When's the enrollment period?
November 17th through December 1st.
So we'll know by December 1st will be out.
Yep, so the budget would be set with the enrollments selected.
Anything else?
Identity theft coverage. Can I get this too?
I'll defer to Lori on that one.
I'm being a little flip, but that seems like an odd thing to
And that was
include.
a coverage Lori had suggested because they have it at the city of Chanhassen, so I'll let her talk about that one.
Yeah, for a relatively modest amount, you can provide employees with this coverage, and the benefit to the city is that, as you all know, identity theft is an extremely time-consuming effort to recover from. The identity theft coverage comes from Travelers Insurance. It covers a certain amount of attorney time, and also sort of a personal assistant that can make these very time-consuming and difficult calls. They can spend an hour on hold for you, and it allows your employee to get back to work and focus on work more quickly than if they have to, take extensive vacation or be distracted by dealing with this incident.
Any other comments?
Just in terms of identity theft, it is something that's beginning to show up in the public sector as an offering for, so not all companies are doing it. It's not a big trend yet, but it's starting to pop, if you will, with companies as an offering.
I'll make a motion to approve agenda statement number 14-207, the employee benefits package for the year 2015.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We've approved the employee benefit package for 2015. I think you can tell, though, Lori, from the tone of the questions, it's a package of benefits that we're not comfortable with, given our experience. Doesn't mean it's not right. In fact, I'm sure it is right, but it's something we're going to have to watch carefully. Donations.
I move that we approve resolution number 1487, a resolution accepting the donation from Richard Hackett, a Honda pump and hose of $750 value for the public works. Thank you, Mr. Hackett.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've approved the donations. Next on the agenda is a public hearing for Astor Trail, Astor Circle improvements. This is the final assessment hearing. Kara?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are finally at the last step of a process that we started quite a long time ago for the Astor Trail Street and Utility Improvement Project. So tonight is the final assessment hearing. The residents have all been mailed both the legally required notice and then a letter that we put together that goes with the notice that explains what's happening non-legal speak so that the residents can understand what the next steps are. But the total project costs are known. This is the same information that was presented to the City Council when the public hearing was ordered. The street and storm sewer assessments came out to $13,900 per unit, and the sanitary sewer assessment comes out to $7,400 per unit. There are some properties up there with multiple units as they are developable. A number of property owners have already started to look into splitting their lot to use the available sewer that's there now. The council approved a split sometime in the last 6 months, I think it was, when Holly was still here, and a building permit just came in for one of those parcels. So there's a new home that'll be getting constructed up there. But again, a letter was sent with all the official information relating to options for payment, so the property owners can pay the amount in full within 30 days of the adoption of the assessment, interest-free. They could pay it with some interest if they choose to pay it between December 10th and the end of the year. Otherwise, the assessment will get added to their property taxes for a period of 15 years at an interest rate of 4.87%. This information was all consistent with what had been previously presented to the residents on a number of occasions over the last couple of years. The letter sent to them also outlined the deferment process should a property owner qualify for a deferment of their special assessment. They needed to notify the city prior to tonight's meeting. One such request was submitted quite a while ago, actually, and that information we're going to cover next on the agenda. But we did receive a request late in the day from a resident today who, with the weather, wasn't able to get here tonight. But the city clerk will be sending that resident the paperwork to determine whether or not they qualify, and then that would come back at the next city council meeting. And then with that, I'll remind you it's a final assessment hearing, but I will take any questions if you have any for me.
Well, before we open the public hearing, council have any questions or comments?
I think you may have covered this, but so there was a change made to the sewer design to go from a gravity to a force feed, and that reduced the cost per user. And so now we have the $7,400 number here. At the time we made the change, we made an estimate of what the revised number would be. Is this consistent with that number?
It's a smidge lower, I believe, than what our revised number had been.
Okay, so again, nobody will be unhappy with this outcome or surprised by it?
Surprised by it is probably a fair statement.
Better way to say it, thank you.
I don't know anybody who's all that happy for a special assessment. In
Thank
general.
you, that's my only question.
All right, we'll move to the public hearing. Someone please make a motion to move to public hearing.
I move we open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We open the public hearing. Anybody wishing to address the council on this topic, this is your opportunity. Please approach the podium, state your name and address, and state your concern. Seeing none, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've closed the public hearing. Next, we approve the motion, the resolution.
So I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 14-88, a resolution adopting the final assessment roll for the Astor Trail and Astor Circle improvements.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We've approved the resolution for the final assessment.
Mayor,
Karen, you want to go?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but one of the Astor Trail residents just walked in the door.
We've just approved the final assessment and closed the public hearing. We can reopen the public hearing. Did you want to address the council?
No, I just wanted to hear the whole spiel.
I essentially reiterated what was in the letter that we sent out to you for what the payment options were and the interest rate and the amounts in about a minute.
Very good.
You know, we'd offer, I mean, you obviously know Kara. We can go through this again, or you can work offline to satisfy your curiosity.
I'll do that.
Yeah, I'd urge you, please. She's more than happy to take you through, and I'm sure she's done it time and time again with other situations. She'd be happy to take you through it.
Okay. We can do that.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry for interrupting you.
Not at all. You have the rest of the night off. Unfinished business. You talked about a special assessment deferral. You want to just pick up?
Yes. So under both state statute and the city's assessment policy, residents who qualify can request to have their assessment deferred. So the agenda statement lists what the criteria is to qualify for such a deferment. And the agenda statement outlines at which point the assessment becomes due. So it isn't like the assessment goes unpaid forever. They just defer the timing in which it's paid. So essentially, their assessment wouldn't go on their property tax, but it would continue to accrue interest over time until it's paid. And it would be paid at the time that the property is sold or subdivided. If the owner of the property would lose homestead status for any reason, if the qualified property owner were to pass away, unless the surviving spouse is still eligible for the deferment, or should the council, for whatever reason, decide that they no longer want to defer the special assessment. Generally, I would say we probably get about one of these per project, I would say has been my experience with all of our street projects. So one did come in. The address and the name is considered private data, so that is not included in your packet. But the clerk reviewed the request and it met the criteria, so she is recommending approval of Resolution 14-89.
Kara, do I understand that there's an additional one beyond this that's pending?
So we received a phone call just before the meeting from a property owner who is interested. So they're required to notify us before the hearing tonight, but the clerk will send them the paperwork and make sure they qualify. So we don't know yet whether they qualify, but that would then come back to the next city council meeting.
So technically, they're late, but we will accommodate.
They notified us before the hearing, so.
So technically they're on time, and technically this is mostly a formality because this is all consistent with state law and our standard practice, so it's more informational, but...
The council is required to approve it, so,
Okay.
as part of the statute.
Just for the record, I'd point out, you maybe, Kara, you could point out the criteria for deferment.
Sure.
The language in here, I think, I find it confusing.
Certainly. So it's at the council's discretion to defer payment of an assessment. So the property has to be homesteaded. The owner has to be older than 65 years of age or older. If the owner is retired by virtue of a permanent and total disability, if there's some unusual or exceptional hardship, and then certainly if the property owner is a member of the National Guard or other military who is ordered into active military service. Those are the criteria. There's also an income limit, which I've noticed she does not have listed here, but the income limit is an important element of the criteria as well, and that's typically covered in my presentation to the neighbors when we have our neighborhood meeting and our feasibility study stages.
Yeah, the income requirement is an absolute first hurdle.
Yeah, and it's not a very high...
I think it's like $20,000. I mean, it's not a lot.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head what it is.
At different places in here, it talks about the owner is 65 years or older, or the owner is retired by virtue of a permanent disability. It's in fact an either-or situation. You have to either be 65 or disabled.
Correct.
Not 65 and disabled.
Correct. But then the income limit
The income limit
kicks in
applies to
under
everybody.
either circumstance. So,
Okay.
you know, often we don't have that many because most people exceed the income limit.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 14-89, a resolution authorizing the deferral of special assessment.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We've approved the deferral. Cheval.
Hi. Our interim planner was not, well, we decided that it was snowing outside and I could cover this agenda item, so why not make him come out in the snow? So I will do my best. So this specific agenda item is for the Cheval neighborhood. It is located on the south side of 86th Street, on the east side of County Road 11, adjacent to the other portions of Cheval that are under development in the city of Chaska. So this is the city limit line between the city of Chaska and the city of Victoria. So over the course of however many years the developer has been working on this project, the city has been working closely with both the developer and the city of Chaska on this project. So the city council approved the preliminary plat back in June of 2013. The final plat, which is included in your packet, is consistent with what was provided in the preliminary plat. But essentially, there are 43 single-family lots located here, shown on these plans. The access to the site is actually provided through Chaska city streets. So if you recall, we had spent a considerable amount of time back at the preliminary plat stage discussing access for Cheval as a whole. Both the city of Chaska and Carver County and the city of Victoria would like to see a connection from this neighborhood out to County Road 11, but the property owner, the developer, does not have control over the land that would be needed to make this connection. So after considerable effort, it was decided that an access would be provided out to 86th Street, and then these streets would be provided access from the Chaska streets. Sanitary sewer is to be extended from Roy Street up to the north. Water main will be looped through the project with a new interconnection to the Chaska water system. So right now we only have one interconnect with another community, and that's with the city of Shorewood. This will give us a secondary interconnect with another city. So those connections stay closed unless one community needs access to water, whether it's an emergency situation. If you recall, the city of Shorewood, we provided some water to them earlier this year, I think it was, while they were doing some maintenance to their water tower. So it's an important piece to have in place from an emergency management perspective. As noted, there's 43 single-family lots. What's probably different about this one is the City Council and the Planning Commission at the time of preliminary plat did approve a 7.5-foot side yard setback for these homes. And as I recall, the discussion at the time had to do with the fact that that's consistent with what the setbacks are in the city of Chaska. And so since this is really same builder, going to be built really as one neighborhood, what they're proposing here is consistent with what's being planned in the other neighborhood. There are no wetlands on the site. The stormwater management facilities are located in outlots that will be provided to the city. There'll be extensive berming along County Road 11, and then there will be trail connections up along County Road 11 as well. And with that, I will take any questions that the council might have. The developer, David Eigel, is in the audience as well if you have any questions for him.
Question on the side yard setbacks. Is there so this is the minimum 7.5 feet at any point. Is there a total number that's more than just double that? Like, is it 7.5 but 30 total or 25 total, or can it be 7.5 on both sides?
7.5 on both sides. It could be, so the houses could be as close as 7.5 on both sides, so 15
15 feet.
total.
Thank you.
You know, for the record, I think we covered this at the preliminary approval hearing. Do you want to comment about the unique relationship with the city of Chaska on this project?
It's a unique
It'll make you feel better.
It's been an interesting process. As some of you might recall, the city of Chaska was requiring a number of things to occur on the
Victoria.
land located in the city of Victoria, which obviously was a little disconcerting for the city of Victoria, specifically related to berming requirements. The city of Chaska is requiring a trail connection in Victoria from this location down to Red Fox Drive, that the city of Victoria will need to maintain. Last status update I had on that trail was it was still being contemplated for a design. So it's not in construction yet, but
Well, it is what it is. It's as frustrating as it was maybe to get here. You're comfortable with where we ended up?
yes, yep.
And David, I assume you are as well, so.
Is the construction of that trail part of the city's responsibility or just the maintenance?
It would just be the maintenance,
Okay.
which staff felt was not inappropriate, that we would maintain a trail in our city limits that would give our neighbors access back to the rest of Victoria too.
There wasn't a statement saying that the planning commission had seen this. Did they review the final plat?
I believe that they did. So one of the things that the interim planner has been looking at is our ordinance doesn't require the planning commission to review final plats.
Oh.
So that's something he's been discussing with them, but I do believe that they saw this one and didn't have any concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Kara, can you point out where the trail is?
Proposed trail?
Yeah, well, we just had that individual come in and talk about how important the trail is to go from Victoria down to Chaska
So
along 11.
he
So-
was speaking about the trail along, proposed trail along Bavaria Road. So
Correct.
this trail would run from Red Fox along County Road 11, and then when it hits this part that you're approving the preliminary plat for, it'll come kind of back through the outlot instead of being in county right-of-way. And then it'll tie into the trail we constructed along 86th Street in 2010. So it is a nice connection for
Okay,
the Lake Town neighborhood and really all this other,
but it's not the part of the county,
no, it's
System.
not a regional trail.
Correct.
It'd be a local connecting trail.
okay, thank you.
Carrots, City of Chaska's plans then to pick it up at Red Fox and take it all down, all the way down to Pioneer Trail.
I honestly don't know the answer to that. But, you know, we have trail that comes down through Red Fox that'll tie into all those new developments that pieces of it have been getting built along the way. So when it's said and done, it'll be a pretty nice loop.
And that's for
Through.
sure going to happen?
It's a requirement by the city of Chaska on the developer, so I don't know what happens if he doesn't do it.
Any other comments?
So the trail will run along the east side of 11 Victoria
Yes.
Drive? Question, I guess a little bit related. So there's going to be a new, well, there should be then a pedestrian crosswalk at Red Fox and then another one on 86th near the Wintergreen development, the corner there, to tie into the, because the trail on 86th Street is on the north side, right?
Yeah, and so we would want to add a crosswalk going this way. I think there already is a crosswalk.
There is.
Well, that was actually my question, is,
Moved and the sign was removed.
and that was my question, was all of the crosswalks and the signs are gone after the upgrade to County Road 11.
Oh.
The pedestrian ramps are still there?
Yeah.
But the markings are gone from the roadway and the signs have been removed.
Well,
Seems-
unless, I can't see Ann's face, but unless she has information that I don't have, we can follow up with the county and find out what, it would be odd that they would put in the ped ramps and
Exactly
not
my
stripe
thought.
it unless they're implementing some other sort of crosswalk policy that I'm not aware of, but.
And that was my thought as well, especially since, like I said, the signs are gone too. It's not just that they didn't paint the stripes. There was a apparently conscious action there.
Well, that would be a mistake.
Yeah. Well, and they get plenty of calls about safely crossing County Road 11, so.
Well, and it's, up by St. Victoria as well.
Yeah,
They're gone.
we can follow up on that.
Thank you.
Good point.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 14-90, a resolution approving the final plat for Chevelle 17th edition.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We've approved the 17th final plat. A change order for the City Hall Library. Congratulations, Dave.
Hi. Somehow I ended up with 4 agenda items in a row tonight. Okay, first I'd like to update the City Council on the schedule, since that was, I think, an important piece of information that we were waiting for. We have, if you recall, we were waiting a steel delivery, and then after that needed to happen, some window openings needed to be measured, which would set a critical delivery date for windows, which was really impacting the whole remainder of the schedule. So that all occurred. We have a delivery date for the windows, and so we are now anticipating our move-in to be middle of January. Staff is specifically targeting the Martin Luther King holiday weekend, figuring that we could be out of service on Friday at City Hall, but then back up and running on Tuesday, and so we would limit the impact to the public during the move-in. So have the phones at least up and running when Tuesday starts, so that people can call and schedule building permits and building inspections and all of those critical things. So that's the current target. There's seems to be lots of head nodding from the construction team that that's doable, certainly barring any other surprises between now and then. There's a lot of work ongoing on the site right now. The electrical rough-ins are almost complete. There's sheetrocking happening inside. The stonework is ongoing on the exterior of the building. The siding is actually all finished in the back with including the banding. So if you get a chance to go over there and take a look at it, you can actually see what it looks like.
Is the building totally enclosed?
The building is not totally enclosed. It's totally enclosed except for those windows that we have to wait for delivery. So there's plastic up, poly up in place to keep it warm, and there's heat going on inside of the building. This is a stupid statement that I wrote down here, but it looks like a building. If you have an opportunity to take a tour, now would be a good time to head over there, and certainly you could arrange with the building official to take you through and see the building. Staff has all pretty much been over there, I would say, in the last week, and you really can start to get a feel for how the space is going to function. I think the decision to put glass in that whole front entryway is really going to do a lot to add light to that second floor. It was poly when I was there, but it really is, I think it's going to just be a really nice space. And you spend so much time looking at it on paper, you can't totally get a feel for how big or small the spaces are, and now you can. And the library, you can picture what it'll look like with little kids in there sitting on their little carpet squares. So certainly would be a good opportunity to go over and take a look at it if that's something you're interested in doing. Tonight we do have 2 change order requests that are larger in nature on the agenda. I will say though, even with approving these, we are still within our budget. So both of these have been anticipated with some of the things that have occurred recently on the site, but we just went back through everything as we do periodically, but in great detail again. I've polled all the different people working on the various elements of the project, and I think even with the things we expect to still be coming in, barring any new information, we don't anticipate being over budget. The first one is a $23,000 change order to furnish and install additional steel in the front lobby. So there was information missing in the plan set related to structural components and structural elements with that front lobby area. So that's what there was a lot of redesign that was having to happen by our architect to address some structural issues with that front entryway building. So they finally got through the worked through the details, got the steel ordered, and that's what the $23,000 add is. The second one is for concrete work. So originally, the original plans just showed concrete sidewalk basically in front of the building, and for whatever reason didn't really detail out what was going to happen in any of the other open spaces. If you remember, the building sort of has like these triangles in front of the building, and the plans weren't really complete in calling out how those areas would be finished, even though it was the city's intention that they would be concrete. So we also had made the decision that we wanted to figure out a way to carry the paver element past these new buildings that we have in the rest of downtown, and we needed to figure out a way to do it that was a better construction technique from what we did back in 2003 when all those other pavers were put in place. If you have walked around at all, you notice that they're moving and settling. So at the time of construction of the Lakeside building, I worked with Jerry Hartman, and his contractor proposed a different construction technique for laying those pavers. So there's actually concrete underneath them. It's like a little trough in the concrete that the pavers are just set in with sand brushed into the open spaces, so they can't move. They're going to move with the concrete. They aren't going to move separately from the other elements. So we decided to solicit quotes outside of the contract to complete the concrete work. So the concrete contractor who did the work in front of the Hartman building and the section of sidewalk that the city constructed earlier this year next to what the plaza area is also now doing the concrete work around City Hall. So basically, all of the additional open space will be concrete between the two buildings, in front of the building, and then we'll include this paver patio area. The cost associated with that work is $20,179.13. A credit will be provided for that sidewalk work that isn't being constructed from the original plans. That's a whole lot of information, so I will take whatever questions you have and do my best to answer them.
Carol, where do we stand overall in contingency?
We still have $50,000 left with approval of these in contingency between the two buildings.
And with Public Works?
Total between the two, yeah. And they're, as Jenny alluded to earlier, we're coming in under in some of the other line items in the budget. Certainly the technology area seems to be one that we're trending under, so overall, we're doing pretty good.
Would it be possible next meeting to have a summary, overall summary of where we're at?
Yes. You'd like some detail to that overall summary, I would imagine, so yes.
Is it typical when, what I would consider to be errors or oversights to be then charged to the, is this consistent that, to get the overruns that become our responsibility?
So had this steel been included in the original bid package, you would have paid for it as part of the original bid package. So you've got to pay for what you're getting. We haven't been billed by the architect for the redesign work, and I don't anticipate that we will be. What you're paying is probably higher than you would have paid had it been initially billed. What I'm taking a look at with Stahl is how much all of these items total up to, and is what we're seeing customary and typical and what Stahl would expect to see on a project, or are we getting to some unreasonable numbers? I'm anticipating that Lori and I will be meeting with Brunton to discuss this. We have some additional heating costs headed our way because of the delays associated with that redesign. That's certainly something I'd like to talk with them about.
So can you include the outcome of that conversation in the summary, please?
Of course.
What caused the redesign?
I don't have a clear answer.
Let me take
on
a shot.
that.
And it's not a direct answer. Design is a function of two things. It's aesthetics and detail. Brunton, I think, was excellent on the aesthetics portion. The detail, their plans, in many cases, were lacking. That steel piece in particular, that should have been part of the original design package, and it wasn't.
Yep.
So why is that our fault, responsibility, and obligation to pay for it?
Because it would have had to been done anyway. It should have been in the original plan that was missed. But I think Kara correctly is going to challenge is the redesign work. You needed the steel in the original plan. It wasn't there. They screwed up. It was redesigned. The plans now put the steel in the building, but the redesign should be on their dime, not ours.
And I agree with that. And the thing that I kind of feel like we dodged a bullet here is we just happen to be able to still stay within budget. Had this redesign been more significant, we'd be having a different conversation if it pushed us out of budget.
Yeah, and I think the other piece that I look back on, it was a tight design schedule. So I suspect that's, I wouldn't put this steel thing in that category, but there's been a number of other things. Like early on, you approved a change order for flagpoles that, you know, are all on all the pictures and everything else and should have been in the final bid documents, but for whatever reason were missed. And
That's why I go back to our construction manager, that's why we're paying for construction managers, they should have caught that. Why didn't they?
before it went out for bids.
I mean, they're responsible for this process and this project. And that's why Don Urim had us hired. He wanted someone to be responsible for that.
Yeah, and I certainly, when I look at the way if the city had to deal with sorting through this whole steel issue and figuring out whether these prices were appropriate and figuring out whether everything that was happening needed to, that would have been a challenge for city staff to be dealing with. It has been very
It would have been
valuable
impossible.
to have that role on the process.
I agree, and I understand that. And I guess as part of the summary, I'd like to understand what the responsibility is of Stahl as the construction manager to make sure everything's right the first time.
Well, and as I recall, when we were evaluating construction manager, there were two approaches. One was as agent, and I don't remember the other one, but the one I believe we selected put them squarely in the accountable role as opposed to just a reporter of what was happening. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't remember what the other other approach we were looking at. This is the one we ended up with, and we have their contract, so.
Yeah.
But certainly that's a conversation that we can continue to have with Stahl.
Well, if it's appropriate. I guess we need your advice. That's my understanding of their responsibility, and if there is their responsibility, if that is in fact their responsibility, they should have caught that, then that's a conversation we should have.
Yeah, and when you're talking about like structural steel design, it's an engineer that needs to catch that it wasn't fully designed. I don't know that a construction manager, if you had a peer review by another structural engineer, it might have been caught, but certainly all of those things. And, you know, Ed's been talking with Dale regularly about what our expectations are for Stahl, and those conversations will continue to happen between now and the end of the project.
So as I again kind of scroll through some of the other supporting detail here, there's a labor rate discussing this and they show a standard rate and an expedited rate. Are we paying the expedited rate due to the schedule problems and or weather?
So that would be one of the elements that I would be wanting to specifically talk with Brunton about. Anywhere where those overtime costs, so we had to make a decision. We didn't want to be delayed anymore, so get the detailed design work, because the fabricator also has to do design work, so get that done. But that's exactly a line that we will specifically be talking about with them.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve change order number 1028, thereby increasing the contract amount by $23,234 and approve the proposal from Michael Masonry Construction in the amount of $20,179.13.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pay him. You're on a roll, Karen. Let's talk water.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is approving a resolution approving plans and specifications and ordering an advertisement for bids for the water storage facility to be located adjacent to Rhapsody Park in the Rhapsody, it's technically in the Ambergate neighborhood where the site would be. The City Council approved the preliminary design report on August 25th, and so the design team's been working on preparing plans and specs since then. If the council approves this advertisement for bids, bids would be received on December 18th and brought forward to the council for award on January 12th. If you recall, we discussed this when final design was authorized, that these dates were strongly recommended by the design team so that we get the best bidding. So this is a one-year project. It'll take all of next year to get it constructed. So you want to be on these tank contractor schedules before the end of the year to get the best pricing. So this is the timeline that they recommended. Specifically, the City Council tonight would be approving advertisement for bids. So once we have bids back on the 18th, then we'll review them, and then that would come to the City Council for approval on the 12th. I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about the elements of the project. And included in your packet were some of the plans. So here's the existing Rhapsody Park. So here's Vogel Farm Road. This is Fieldstone Drive. This is the location of the existing booster station and park shelter. And here's the existing ball fields. So the city obtained a site from Mattamy Homes, the developer of the Ambergate neighborhood, up here just to the north of the ball field. If you recall, one of the things we had the design team evaluate was repurposing the existing booster station to also serve as the pumps for the ground storage facility. So they were able to use the existing building. So there's some work happening within that existing footprint, but the building itself isn't changing. There will be a little structure added on the side of the building to house the piping that then is going to go down into the ground and then connect over to the new reservoir. The plans do include constructing a permanent generator also on the site. Obviously, that is important to have backup power. The booster station already was identified as needing backup power. When the booster station was originally constructed, there was a conduit put into what is now the Rhapsody 3rd Edition, because that was going to be the Public Works facility, so backup power was going to be provided from the Public Works facility that is no longer located on that site. So a generator is included in the plans, and then piping back up to the 0.75 million gallon reservoir. If you recall, we had discussion about what the reservoir itself would look like, and whether or not there would be a public purpose of any sort above the reservoir. What we ended up settling on was that the reservoir would be completely buried, so you'll end up just seeing grass and landscaping over the top of the reservoir. There'd be a short retaining wall between here and the Bone property located to the east. But then this space here actually has a decent slope on it, that it does provide an opportunity for sledding in the winter for the neighborhood. So that was something that the Park and Rec Committee expressed interest in trying to work into the site, and with the way the grades worked. So it isn't going to be an elaborate sledding hill where, you know, scores of people are going to be driving for miles around to access the sledding hill, but certainly younger kids would enjoy sledding down this portion. It's down, the ball field is right here, so you're sledding down into a city park. So generally that's preferred over into the neighbors. We will be putting landscaping along the perimeter to make sure that it's screened and that people aren't sledding into the neighbors' yards instead of into the park area. Let's see. So the budget for the project was $3 million. The design team's latest estimate was about $10,000 under $3 million, so I rounded it up to $3 million. Certainly we won't know until the bids come in, but that's the same number that we saw at preliminary design, and that was reviewed by the finance committee when, the finance committee before the city council directed us to go with the 0.75 million gallon tank. So with that, I will take any questions.
Anybody?
I don't have any questions, but a couple of comments, just conversations with various people around the city. And I have expressed concern about wanting to go ahead with this, but I also put it in the category of our decision to extend the sewer down to the south side of Lake Wasserman, the south. Question came up that there might be some property in play in the south end of town, and where did we stand on moving forward with this? And with Kara's previous presentation about the need for water and projecting that out over time, I see this now is completely aligned with our decision on the sewer. It was suggested that there's some property coming into play on the south side of Marsh Lake that this provides, what's the term, some comfort that we'll have the water capacity to expand for the houses that will be placed around the Marsh Lake, and they may actually be coming to us soon for annexation. So this is putting in play a whole new set of homes, potentially. And then, this is more of a question. I heard someone say that Lennar was considering extending or completing the entire Lake Town neighborhood. Have you heard anything from Lennar?
We've met with them, so we expect that they'll be submitting a concept plan for the remainder of the land that they own, that they've been waiting to do anything with for the sewer pipe. So that includes this large parcel here, this area in really kind of right in the existing Lake Town neighborhood that was graded once upon a time, but they couldn't develop because they didn't have sewer. They also own this piece down through here and portions, I can't remember exactly which parcels in here. So,
Everything but that little corner there.
yeah, and they don't own this and they don't own that, and they don't own this little square here. So they, whether or not the council recalls this, but back in 2003 and 4, before all of Lake Town was planned, the city participated in an AUAR, and Lennar did a lot of master planning, so there actually was an approved concept plan for all of this land. So it's pretty consistent. What we saw the last time we met with them is pretty consistent with what that approved concept plan was. However, there are some modifications due to having better information about where wetland boundaries are, more detailed information than they had at the time that the concept was developed. There is a portion of the project that is supposed to be multifamily. They discussed wanting to convert that to single family, so we relayed to them the discussions we've had with the council and the planning commission related to the property adjacent to Madeline Creek and the 13.5 acres, and if we reduce density, we have to find somewhere else for density. So they were still evaluating that last we talked with them, but it sounds like they'll be submitting a concept, and then that'll be in front of the city council through our normal process.
The other property around Marsh Lake is the meat cutter property.
Yeah, there's a big for sale sign there. If you drive by, you can see it. This property is interesting because the alignment of Marsh Lake Road as a county road impacts that property, which we had met with the property owners back when that was first being discussed. But Yes, it is outside the city limits and would need to be annexed, but
And without the $3 million 750-gallon tank, perhaps not.
yeah, as I've said to the city council on more than one occasion related to this project, should the city council decide to not move forward, it would become problematic to continue to approve new plats without additional storage capacity. It would be hard for me to recommend approval.
Well, the new homes, the fees from the new homes will build up that $3 million kitty pretty quick.
I have a couple questions, Mr. Mayor.
Joe?
Included in this project, is there a new well?
No, so the new well is budgeted for 2016. We have to find the groundwater source that we want to hit, and we have to find a site. So that's something we'll be working very closely on in the next 12 months.
Okay, so if we build the storage facility and don't put in a well, is that storage facility dry?
No, the storage facility can be served from our existing water supply.
Okay. And then my last question is, moving forward with this project, does this affect our water rates in any way?
It is not programmed into the budget for any rate increases. So we do have the storage, we have a well in 2016, a well in 2019. No raise in water rates, although we do probably need to bond for the 2016 well.
Thank you.
Anything else? Make a motion?
I will move we approve resolution number 14-91, a resolution approving plans and specifications for ordering advertisement for bids for the water storage facility.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. You've approved the plan. Item number 10A.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, last Tuesday, November 4th, was the general election, and as part of the duties of the council, you have to canvass the election, and in your packet you have a listing of the candidates with the total number of votes cast, and then by percentage. There's a resolution to certify the City of Victoria general election results, and you need to do that so we can submit that to the county.
I'll make a motion to certify, to approve Resolution 1492, a resolution certifying the City of Victoria November 4th, 2014 election results.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We've approved the election results. Okay, on the reports of the city manager, I guess, Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. New manager, old manager, old council, new council. I think I covered everybody. Oops, sorry. Tonight we're at another crossroads, and that is selecting candidates for interview process. It's a little bit different than last time. Last time, council had all the authority in selecting finalists, all the authority in selecting the city manager. Tonight, we're going through our first process where we're sharing that responsibility. I have reviewed the community development director applicants. I interviewed 18 of those applicants. I forwarded 16 of those applicants' reports, similar to the ones that you've been able to see, to Lori. I met with Lori, and we discussed a range of applicants and settled in on 10 that we thought would be showed the greatest potential to partner with the city. And so now we have these 10. I'd like to review these with the caveat as well that there are 3 here that Lori's identified as people she would like to move forward.
and wanted to discuss that with you, along with what your recommendations or thoughts on completing the field. We would like to see 5 people, like we did with the city manager process. As you know, the date of the 20th has been set aside for interviews and for meeting the public, having an open forum in which we hope all of you will attend, meet the candidates, and provide input as well. And with that, I will quickly review the candidates and then ask that our city manager also identify for you people who she feels strongly about, and then we'll have 7 candidates left, of which we'll want to choose a couple. I will go in order. Candidate 1 has worked in small cities and developing cities, small to medium size. He's had to wear pretty much all the hats in local government. He has a strong background in those small cities. His experience has been as a city administrator, but as a role in city administrators had to do the planning, plat review, and the zoning for those communities where he was city administrator. He was also assistant administrator in a larger city. This would be, I think, a development needed. It would be a slight step up for him as far as community development is concerned. He hasn't seen the plat size that you have. Given his assistant positions, I think this would come fairly quickly for him. Candidate 2 is coming from a rapidly developing city, one of the fastest growing communities of the Des Moines area. It's a suburb of the Des Moines area, has grown by over 6,000 population since his arrival in 2007. Has seen a lot of the things that we see. His one drawback out of his diverse skill set, which I think is fantastic, is that in that city they have an economic development director, so he hasn't been directly responsible for those responsibilities. They do not have a Met Council there, but they do share a lot of regional systems such as water, sewer, transportation, those type of things, so it has a look and feel much like the issues that he would encounter here. Candidate number 3 has an interesting background, has only been a community development director for a couple of years, has worked in the private sector, was put into the community development director position in 2012. This city has grown slightly in the amount of time that she has been in this position. She's still new in that role. Her strength comes with her experience in the private industry. And that is also a weakness for her in that she hasn't been with cities very long. Very unique person, very strong and dynamic. Her private development and whole building gives her some real credibility jumps with developers. And so she was an interesting candidate to put in the mix. Candidate number 4 actually climbed into the economic development role up from planner and then planner into the economic development coordinator position. This is a second ring suburb, a fully developed city, that the drawback with this candidate is, as an established city, has not seen the growth that we have here. But he does have a strong portfolio, very organized, level-headed, approachable type person, at ease with public speaking. Again, the weakness would be having not seen the growth that we've seen in Victoria. Candidate 5 outside the metro area just barely, has worked as a community development director in a small community, then moved to a larger community where he was planning manager and now deputy director of community operations. The city, like many during this time period, was not growing due to the economic situation. He, big picture lens through the planning process. He's detailed, sharp. I don't think he would have much trouble adapting to the growth, but again, he hasn't not seen it at this level. Candidate 6 has been a community development director, has also worked in the suburbs, has worked for a larger community, and a community of a little over 12,000 as community development director. When the economy turned sour, they downsized, lost his position in 2011. His knowledge of planning is excellent. He's pretty calm, steady. He's very detail-oriented, independent, can come in right away and help with the planning issues, won't need any hand-holding. Development needed, actually none in planning. He's a little weaker in economic development. He's a very dependable type of person. Candidate 7 also has a experience with a private firm as a project manager, as a planner, is now director of planning, zoning, and building in a community of roughly 15,000. Lives close by. He also has a wide range of experience. Kind of covers all the bases that you were looking for a community development director by the city. Found him easy to talk to. I think he'd be easy to work with and a good problem solver. Very good communicator, has the technical skills and the experience, consulting. And when I looked for places where you would need to develop, I didn't find any. I think he would be competent in all the areas that you're looking at. Candidate 8 is a senior planner. He has county experience as well. One of the things I like to put about him is he likes to have fun at work. He is a friendly individual, very relaxed with the staff and the public, comfortable speaking in front of large groups. He has some experience working in rapidly growing communities. There was a 5-year growth spurt where he was working. Getting back into the role of economic development will be the one challenge I see for him. Candidate 9 comes from the Denver area. I say area, it's one of the suburbs. It's been a rapidly growing suburb. Very diverse. He brings also a variety of skills to the table. Really has moved. He's worked in Florida, he's worked in Ohio, then went to Colorado, and is looking at this position. I asked him about that, and I think the sense is that he's constantly looking for a new challenge. He went from more and more responsibility as he went along, sees this as an excellent step for him. He also has family in the state, and that is a reason for wanting to move at this point. He's not worked in Minnesota, which will require some time to get up to speed on the codes. Now, given his track record, taking a look at it, it appears that he would be able to adjust quickly. Candidate 10 is currently working in Texas as the Director of Development Services. Not too long ago was a Community Development Director just north of the Twin Cities. She has had many hats in her career, strong background in community development, excellent with written oral communication, is no stranger to getting up in front of the council. I will say that talking to her, the trip to the environment in Texas that she was expecting is not there. And it's very foreign to her, and it's not fitting her personality. So looking to make the move, come back to this area. She's not been in the lead in economic development, so that is going to be a development area that I see for her. So that is a brief overview of the candidate pool. You've had a chance to read those. Mayor, if we could, I would ask that maybe Lori identify the candidates that she feels most strongly about.
Lori?
Sure. First, I want to say it was just a great applicant pool, and we should be really proud to have these kind of people interested in working in Victoria. I'm looking forward to meeting them. The candidates that I identified, looking through their leadership profiles and the information that we have here, that I would definitely like to see included in the pool would be candidate 3 and candidate 7. And I'm also very interested in meeting candidate 2.
I'm sorry, Lori, just make sure, 3, 7, and 2?
3, 7, and 2. And I can give you a little bit of background, some of the themes that stood out for me in what I think we need for this position. Somebody who is an excellent relationship builder. I know from talking to all of you and people in the community that one of the things that they most valued about Holly was that she was a bridge builder. She had relationships with numerous business owners, residents, council within the community, and I know that we want to make sure that we don't lose that strength that she brought to the city. Looking for somebody that will share my positive energy and enthusiasm for trying out new ideas and for Victoria and this area in general. Looking for somebody who has either the experience with economic development or the exposure and skill set, that will be something that will come naturally and quickly for them. And on kind of a flip side, instead of a personality leadership trait, also somebody who has technical knowledge of planning. Currently, this is our only staff person devoted to community development and planning, and it's important that they have the experience of doing things like reviewing plats and applications and not just being in the leadership role.
You picked 3. Was it, we were trying to get to 5?
Correct.
Yes.
That's my question. Are you comfortable with just these 3?
I would really like to meet 5 so that we can be really comfortable. People often, I know Richard has spoken with them and can give us his opinion, but people often come across different on paper than they do in person, and what strikes me as a good fit might not strike the staff who know our environment. So I would really like to meet 5 if we can identify an additional 2 that interest us.
Did you identify 2 additional candidates that interest you?
Yeah, I think, I want to give everybody a chance to maybe talk about what they want, but I'd be happy to throw out 2 more if you think that's appropriate. Okay. So I would probably identify candidate 4 and candidate 5 to round out that 5 applicant pool.
Our advice has been solicited.
And Mr. Mayor, Council, and Lori, Council, is there anybody that that you found really jumped out for you, that you felt would be interesting to talk to, outside of the people that have been mentioned?
The problem I had is every time we've gotten a list from you, there are 12 here, 12, any one of the 12, at least sitting here today looking at this, could do the job. So much of it is the interpersonal reaction that you get when you come face to face with these people, and you imagine how they would deal with our citizens. So it's, I mean, I don't know how you take 12 to 1 unless you get a number in and you get to visit with them face to face.
It is difficult. Yeah, I try to put a description as thoroughly as I can without, but without meeting them face to face, I know it's very difficult for you. You're not looking at, wow, this person looks really weak. You know, you don't have that person in here. There are some with more skills than others in certain areas, but you do have a strong pool, as Lori indicated.
Well, how about Council?
I was just going to suggest that this process that we're going through here is a little bit different than what we went through for the city manager. The city manager reports to the citizens of Victoria through the city council. This person reports to Lori, and it's Lori's responsibility, and I'm inclined to accept her recommendation.
My choices were actually very close to yours, so I would also do that. I would also encourage you that if there are additional items, which I'm sure you've already considered, that we did not call out when we put the profile together with Richard, you know, that those are certainly high on your list as well. And so that was going to be one of my questions, is what were you looking for that was different? But obviously, you've called out some of those already with your choices, so I think fully support your choices.
Thank you very much.
I guess I would just like to reiterate that one of the key things that we talked about was, as we move forward, recognizing that the needs of the coming years may be different than the ones we've addressed in the past, and so making sure that we have that, you know, skill set that is addressing economic development from both a business, multifamily housing, some of those more diverse attributes that we haven't necessarily exploited yet.
Agree.
The next critical date could be the 20th.
Yes,
You wanna
we have
talk about-
advertised and invited people to attend the open house on the 20th, and staff has set aside that day to conduct one-on-one and panel interviews.
Well, it wasn't a motion, I think, Jim, that you suggested whatever, bring in Lori, whoever you want. I'd support that. You pick the 5 you want, and
Thank you.
how do
I
people
appreciate
feel?
that.
Lonnie?
Same. Fine.
Joe?
Yep. Agreed.
Invite the 5 in, and we'll be available on the 20th.
Great. Thank you very much. I look forward to meeting them.
All right. Thank you. The only caveat I'll have is through the contact process. If someone happens to say, sorry, I'll work with, you know, that maybe they've been offered a job or something changed in their life, or they want to drop, I'll work with Lori on seeing if there's a substitute that you would like to bring in.
That sounds great.
All right.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Reports of the mayor, city council members, attorney, and committees. Mr. Mayor, do you
Do you have additional items?
Campaign signs.
report?
I don't have anything additional to be read.
We have an additional item on the agenda, the election campaign signs.
We did that, didn't we?
No.
No.
What am I missing?
It was added.
You want to put that on at another time?
No, I think I'm the only one who doesn't have it.
We can share.
This is the signs. We're not going to deal with the signs tonight.
You don't want to deal with it this evening?
The signs?
Yeah. It's up to you.
How do people feel? I could ask. During the last campaign, let me just set as a preamble, during the last campaign, there was considerable anguish, anxiety, and outright frustration with the treatment, placement, and control of campaign political signs by, it seemed like, a variety of candidates. Certainly, a number of candidates called and expressed concern to Jenny and to Ann and to me that what was the process? There's county, there's state, there's city. Why these signs? Candidate X has put a sign in a right-of-way. It should be gone. Who should take it? If anybody should take it. How do we manage that? And what I wanted to do was not solve the problem tonight, but at least address that. I think we have an issue the way the ordinance reads. There is a lack of clarity in the expectations of candidates as to what do I do? What happens when a sign of an opponent is, and I recognize it's in an inappropriate area. What, if anything, is my recourse? I think the current, and I'd ask maybe Tom and Jim to pipe in because they were directly affected by this. There's a lack of clarity, I think, in terms of what is the expectation, and then once that expectation, how is it managed and who's responsible for what pieces of it? Tom, you want to?
Yeah, I guess, and I guess I'll say observation with a judgment. The observation was that there were a number of signs that were placed in places that were inappropriate by the ordinance, and the process for getting them removed seemed to go in circles with no action. And in some cases, it seemed like there was a flagrant abuse. In other words, signs would be removed and replaced a day or so later, and the timing was such that then everybody was gone for the weekend. And so it seemed like a fairly well-timed strategic effort to thwart the law, and then nobody was there to enforce it. So it was a big frustration. It didn't feel like there was an interest in playing fair, and so the question that came up was, who can do something about it and not have this happen again?
I think I'll add to that I agree with what Councilmember Strudel stated, and it was clear that the county and state had their act together in terms of what needed to be done. Our ordinances, I agree with the mayor, are somewhat ambiguous, and we have an opportunity to tighten things up.
There is one area that I say is a little bit of a gray area, because I shouldn't say it's a gray area, but in the cases of properties that are located along county and state roads, those easements tend to be a little bit larger, and you could see if you went looking parcel by parcel on the GIS where the property lines were, and you could definitely identify signs that were inappropriately placed, but I'm not sure that even the property owners who put them up would necessarily have known that in some cases.
Yeah, that's one of the potential outcomes. That, you just ignore the easement and the right-of-way line, and if it's on private property, it's okay. It's not illegal. If it's on private property but within the easement, it's inappropriate. That forces somebody to go around with a tape measure, potentially, and measure, and that again, this group will decide if that's appropriate. And I should add, the other side, the other candidates too, we had complaints from everybody. And it was maddeningly frustrating, I'm sure for you folks, as candidates, to know that something's wrong and to feel that nothing's being done about it. I'd like to commit that we task Lori and to put together a team to come back and recommend an appropriate ordinance along with procedures to deal with illegal signs, and we do it in the next month and a half, just while we're focusing on it and while it's an issue that's in front of us, and not have to go through this thing in 2 more years. So rather than solve it tonight, Lori, can you take that ball and...
Yeah, I think that would be a great approach.
If you would be interested, just please feel free to call. I'd be happy to share the experience in terms of, the wheres and the whys and the hows, things that we want to try and make sure we design a process to avoid.
That's good, thank you.
Any other report from...
There's 2 things. One is tomorrow's Veterans Day, and the offices are closed for business, so it's a holiday.
There's a veteran ceremony in the Chaska Middle School tomorrow at 7:30 for anybody who's interested. It's quite a stirring event.
The other item is the life expectancy of your current interim city manager. How much longer did you want me to remain here?
Say, life expectancy, that sounds...
It's a
That
little,
did sound, yeah.
Live long and prosper.
You did indicate at the last meeting that you'd like me to continue until the end of November, and that's fine. If you want me to go longer, I can do that too. Just give me some idea where we're standing, because I got to plan some things for my...
I think we agreed that we would be available through the end of November, whether that means full-time in an office on-site is up to Lori if she thinks she needs, but certainly the compensation would be extended through the end of November, and longer if to the extent that Lori feels there's a need and a benefit or something worthwhile that you could work on. Did I capture that?
I think so.
How's that sound?
Fine. We'll work it out.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I had, unless Lori has some.
I do not, thank you.
Two things, and I'll try to make them quick. The last council meeting, we got a Dunning letter from the MPCA, and I was directed to put together a strongly worded memo inviting them to come and defend themselves at this council meeting. I got a call during the middle of the week asking for more time to put together an appropriate roster of individuals that would come. Speaking with Kara, they suggested 4 names, and they're senior level people, so we would get, I think you thought we would get a credible hearing. And over the phone, the supervisor that I talked to, really professed an interest to help us understand the thinking behind the current violation, and expressed a strong willingness to work together with us in the future. We'll see. What I suggested was, rather than have it at a city council meeting, there are 4 senior people from the MPCA, Kara, me, and any of you who would like to sit in on it, certainly would be welcome. We would post it, the notice it, but set up a meeting during the week sometime at a non-council member session, almost like a workshop, where we could get the full back and forth and discussion of the issues. And I told this fellow I'd call him back tomorrow with the council's direction, but that's my recommendation.
That's good.
Okay?
Along with that request for additional time for them to be prepared, do we get additional time then in terms of responding to the penalty?
No, the check went in. We were directed to send the check. Maybe we get it back.
That would be good.
I'd like to participate in that.
Well, we'll post it so that you can, heck, there's 2 of us, it wouldn't need to be posted, but we'll do it just in case others want to come. And one other thing, I sent to Ed to send out to folks, an article in the Minneapolis-St. Paul Business Journal that listed places from a financial point of view where you should be proud to live. Number 2 on the list, slightly behind Edina, is the city of Victoria. And they used 4 measures. Median household income, we're at $127,317. That's second to Edina. In Eden Prairie, Excelsior list, there's 20 communities. The median net worth is $500,000 for Victoria. Disposable income is over $100,000, and the median home value, according to this report, is $439. So anytime we talk to, well, should grocery stores or should businesses come to locate here, these financials would seem to indicate you can't do any worse than come to Victoria and set up your business. So this is something I'm going to keep in my back pocket. The next time we talk to a grocery store owner who says, I'm not sure that Victoria could support a grocery store, look at the money that's here. And one last thing, and forgive me for rambling on here, but you've heard of the last week when Linda McNulty was here, she talked about some of the things that the Victoria for a Lifetime Committee is responsible for. One is WeCab. This is the brainchild, candidly, of Mary Hirschberger-Toon, and to those of you who know her, you know I probably have to say nothing else. She's taken this from a standing start to where it's now a credible service organization providing rides to individuals in eastern Carver County. She's going to come, I've invited her to come to the January 5th city council meeting. It's the first meeting of the next year where we don't have much of an agenda, and she will go through the program. There's also an information session scheduled for St. Victoria's Church on January 8th, so the 5th and the 8th. Stand by. She's got registers already. She's got volunteer drivers, and they're providing rides for individuals who otherwise can't get to ladies to hairdressing, to doctor's appointments, to shopping, provide rides to people who otherwise can't afford them. Details to follow, but I thought I'd just mention that, get it started. I'm done.
One more item. Just a reminder for everyone that on November 17th, from 4:30 to 6:30, there will be a welcome reception for Lori Hokanen here at City Hall.
All are invited. Jim?
When Linda McNulty was here last session, I alluded to some conversations that were occurring about the possibility of senior housing and independent living in Victoria. And those conversations continue, and what's happening is that there's some property that is potentially for sale in downtown Victoria. There's some interest from the Carver County and potentially participating with Victoria in the development of senior housing and independent living housing. The individual that's responsible for that group within Carver County has stated that he would welcome an opportunity to meet, but he doesn't want to do so unless there's a majority interest from council. And so if council decides that they are interested in taking this to an exploratory step, we can gather this individual, potentially a couple developers, and have a workshop to discuss about what a partnership might mean.
Independent living in downtown Victoria.
In downtown Victoria. Are we interested?
I'm interested.
I'm interested.
That too.
So you want
I will,
to wrestle this to the ground?
I will do that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
You mentioned the grocery store. Any conversation to be had?
No. Unfortunately. Ed, you haven't had any time.
I saw Mr. Wortman last week, and he's still working on some projects, but nothing in the immediate works.
I spoke with him 2 weeks ago, and he's seeking investors with $50,000 or $100,000 chunks. So
Interested in a 12 or 13% return?
he's halfway there to where it is goal in terms of having the investments to reopen the store.
Yeah, we don't want to be cavalier about this, or certainly I don't want to appear to be flippant. He's trying to trying very hard to find people to put money into to sustain a going operation called a grocery store. He's interested in a grocery store, but he needs investors. At the moment, he hasn't been able to entice investors with the amount of capital they'd have to commit versus the return they could reasonably expect. It's a fairly typical business proposition. We don't have a willing buyer and a willing seller yet, but he is working on it.
It's working very hard.
Now anything else? Make a motion to close?
I move to close.
Second.
We're adjourned, we're closed. Go on. You would sound good.
It was nice to meet you.